Okay, so today we are going to paint a group of flowers in a vase, and I am going to start by covering the background in white. I know it's already white, but we want to protect the canvas and not have it look so poorly and let it look like it's paint covered. And I want to just say that all of the colors I'm going to use will be in the instructions below. So right now I am just using plain old white. And it's a very liquidy, cheap paint because the background is going to be white, so I don't really need to have any kind of fancy color, and I want it to go on easily and smoothly. So I have basically picked a paint that will glide on very quickly. And before I start the next section, I will have to dry this. So this is just for right now, and you can see I'm just doing it very sloppily because, you're not going to see any of this because it kind of matches the background. So just basically just covering the canvas. And this is a trial run because I have not actually done anything like this before. So I hope it goes well. And it's been a day off of work, so I have no desire to be on camera right now. So what I'm going to do is pause the video and use a blow dryer on a low setting to get this nice and dry before I start with any color. So be right back. Okay, so now I've got so this is the next brush that I'm going to be using. It's got a rounded top to it, and it is a size 8. So what I'm going to do with this brush is I'm going to take some burnt umber, which is kind of like a dark brown, and I'm going to mix in some white, and I don't know if you can see that, but that is burnt umber with white. And I am not mixing them together because otherwise I'm just going to get a light brown. I kind of want a mixture of color up here. So I'm going to just keep grabbing, and I think I'm going to want more white than the burnt umber because it's going to give us that background, but you can see there's some like stripey things going on there, and it's still a little wet. I'm going to put some water on my brush so that it moves a little bit better for me. And then that is how I get that color. I don't hardly need any brown at all, any burnt umber at all, in order to get this nice color with a few little stripes in it to have an effect of maybe there's a wall behind the painting or behind the flower pot. So that's what this is about. And again, it doesn't require a lot of big effort to get this laid down. My white is still that very liquidy white that I bought. It's kind of it's called Apple Barrel. It's from the company Apple Barrel, so it's more on the crafty side, but it is a easy cleanup matte acrylic paint, which is what I was looking for. The brown is a heavy-bodied paint, so that's why it sticks a little bit more and doesn't flow as nicely. But when I put it with the white, it kind of does. So I'm just basically going up and down, just trying to meld all that in there, not making a big deal out of the top. I'll get that later. And you don't want to go over the same spot too many times because it'll make it nice and muddy, which is not what we're looking for. I just noticed there was a spot there that no paint picked up. See right in here, I don't know if you can see that, but it's starting to get where it's not grabbing the paint, and that could be it's just not wet enough. But I don't want to press down real hard because that does not give it the right painterly effect that we're looking for. A lot of brown there, so I think I'm going to come back with just white over the top of that. Don't want it to look like it's got any sort of a pattern or anything. I want to make it look just a lot of different browns and whites laid down in the background to our vase. Alright, and I'm going to finish this up, dry it, and I will be right back. Okay, so what I really like about this next part is we are going to use one of these, and I can't think of the name of it right now, and so I'm going to mess that up. But anyway, and what we're going to do is we are going, nope, still don't have it. We're going to bring down a palette knife. We're going to bring down the paint on here and kind of rough it up. It will be kind of a spotted thing, but I want you to notice on my thing here, I don't have a lot on here because I want to just kind of check it out first. But I'm going to just go from the bottom up, and it gives kind of a cool effect. I'm going to do it on the other side because I kind of messed that up. And you'll see when the whole picture's done, I'm thinking you saw the finished product. That is how this part of the video got into. Again, I'm just grabbing not a whole lot because otherwise it'll be completely covered. I don't want that. Like that side right there is a little bit more than I was looking for. I'm also going to take a little bit of the white. It's kind of a contrasting color. And it's more liquidy, so I have to be careful with that. Kind of make it look aged. And put more down here. Up at the top and the bottom, and in the center of it. Again, I'm going to grab a little bit of the white. Alright, I think that looks a little messy enough. Nothing's supposed to be real perfect about that. That's what I like about this. And next, I'm going to take one of my smaller brushes. Let's see, I have to get the right one. This is a size 9. It's the same kind of rounded top that the other brush had, but just a whole lot smaller. And what I'm going to do with this is, and I can go back and I can fix it if I don't like it. I think I'll start with white because white is easier to go over if I decide I don't like it. But this is how I'm going to trace out my face. And again, I am not trying for perfection here. And if I don't like it, it's pretty easy to go back over my work and cover it up. If you want to try mapping this out in some chalk first. I do that when it's something more complicated. I just put a little bit of chalk in, because chalk if the painting is dry, is pretty easy to erase. Now what I want to do is kind of darken up some of these edges so it stands out just a little bit better as the edge of my vase. Don't really like how that is yet. As I said, yet acrylic painting, you can go over and over and over and cover up your mistakes, and that is what the best part of this is. So we will go back and cover that up later when the painting is dry. Now what I need is a pretty blue, and the blue I am using is Cobalt Turquoise. Hopefully you can see that. Look at the brightness on my computer turned up so you can see the painting really well. And I am going to, and it doesn't matter what brush I use for this probably, but I am going to be mixing some white and blue, because I don't want it that dark blue, but I do want the blue there. So I'm going to mix those two colors up and look at the beautiful contrast of those two colors in the middle there. And I'll back over this later with other layers. So I'm just putting down the base of this right now. And again, I'm not mixing the blue, like the brown and the white. I didn't mix it. I'm just getting it on my brush. Just grabbing a little bit of blue, grabbing a bunch of white. It's kind of all mixed on there. And then put it down. And then it'll turn out to be whatever it's turning out to be, and that is okay. Beauty of this is, whatever I don't like, I just go over it more. I think what I'm going to do is stop my vase right about here. That'll do it. To go in and touch some of that up later. Now what happens when you start going over paint that's dry is it gets very muddy, so I'm kind of going over this just a little bit too much right now. I just want you to see how much I am not trying to be super detailed with this. I'm just kind of, and it is going to be a beautiful picture at the end, I think. I'm covering over that brown already because I wasn't real happy with how that was turning out, but it's easy enough to cover up. There we go. And it's still kind of too wet to do much with that, so I'll have to go back over that later. A little bit more just color in here. I want to use a palette knife on this at the end, but right now what I'm going to do is just work on deciding where I want those little flowers to go. So all I need now is white. I'm going to let this dry, and I will be right back with a more, not less liquidy white. Okay, going back to that size 8 brush, a little bit bigger, and I've got a thicker white. This is called Heavy Body Titanium White, and the pattern is going to be kind of like little half circles, and when we go back in with the brown, it's going to define these little puffs better. but that's what that's going to look like. That's one with 3. And then I'm going to go right here, a few more little half circles. This one's going to have 4. And I got to cover that in a little bit there. And then over here, I'm going to be putting some brown in there, so I'm going to leave that open. And then I want to widen it out a bit. So it's going to go 3, 5, 3 basically if we're looking for a count. As far as the number of little cotton plant flowers we're going to have here. And then it will definitely, this one is just kind of a little blob here, and you'll see why when we put the brown in. The brown has to go in last because it's kind of underneath and over our little puffs. And another one here. And then I'm going to put one right in here. A nice big one up here. And one right here. And what I try to do when I do paintings is I try to balance things out. So I feel like that's kind of balanced. It doesn't, I don't want it to look like a mirror image on each side. I just want to make it look somewhat balanced in the photo. So I'm going to go back to the brown and the white with my palette knife. Probably really want more white here. This is kind of dry now. Maybe a teensy bit of brown. Gonna get it just a teensy bit. It's giving it kind of a weathered look. I definitely think I need to go back to that brown, because that is definitely going to need to have a I hope you're seeing how casually I paint, but it's not like some expert painting here. I don't have that ability. I just like to have fun. And to me, this is a fun way to spend my COVID-19 time. All right, now I'm going to take my smaller little rounded top brush, and I want to add some stems. So that is definitely thicker than I want it. So I'm going to have to fix that later, but right now I'm going to just wipe down the brush, and maybe I will just grab a smaller brush. So this one is quite a bit smaller. It is a Robert Simmons 0. So 0 is pretty small. So we'll see how this works. I don't usually have good luck with flow on these. Now I am like in the air trying to paint. What I really need to do is rest, but you can only rest if it's dry. So that way you get a straighter line. And since it's not going smooth, I'm going to add some water to the paint and get a decent amount on, not too much. And then maybe I'll water this just one more time to make sure it's going to flow for me. And I'm going to go right down. That's a better size stem. And we're going to have one right here. Here. Okay, need some more water. Sometimes I worry when I get to this part that I'm going to completely ruin my painting when I add something like this to the beauty that I already have here that I like so much. So this kind of stuff, I can come up alongside it with the other colors that I've been using. So I'm not going to worry about that. This one you can't even see behind it. Now that's the stems, and like I said, we'll go back in and fix that. But since they're little cotton balls, they have to have that. And that's too wet. I'll come back to that one. Just trying to make them look a little more realistic. Get a little bit of color here. Don't want them all going the same way either, so I'm really trying to make them slightly different, each one of them. And I think I'll fix this one a little bit. There, that's better. So it's not matchy-matchy everything else. Some of it's a bit too wet to be doing this too. Okay, and then, you know, a little bit of that. Show some definition here. I get quiet when I'm getting all serious and everything with the details in the painting. Not too shabby. Just want to get some life in here, and you know, they're not perfectly white. go. It's looking better, looking better. Still not quite ready, but maybe I just like it how it is anyway. Some of this I think needs a little more definition, darker. Hopefully you are getting this the way you like it. I tend to paint a little faster when I know I am being watched. But you need to go at your pace for sure. Don't let my fastness make you think you've got to go faster. Going over it a little bit in the white, first of all, covers up some of my mistakes, but secondly, you can see it's giving it some 3D effect a little bit there. That was the plan. Although, that doesn't mean it's always going to work that way, so sometimes I feel like I got just lucky with it. But I don't want it to look like lines that I painted on here. I want it to look like a plant, a little cotton ball. I'm trying so hard to stay out of the camera. That's what quarantine does. It makes you lazy about getting ready in the morning. You just figure, hey, what's the point? All right. Okay, I think the only other thing I want to do is combine some of this white and brown. A little more white. So you don't see how thick I was making that. It's not easy to match it, but luckily the behind the scenes here is a whole myriad of colors. So it doesn't really matter. That one was the worst. That's looking better. And I honestly, mostly it's white because there's already some brown on here, so I didn't really add much brown to get that all fixed up. There we go. That's better. All right, I want this just to really pop there. All right, I think I'm kind of done. I think actually though, one thing is I would like these here to be longer and much, much darker. So I'm going to take my brown, and I've already got some black ready, and I do this quite often where I just mix the black and the brown together to make a darker brown. So this is just plain old ivory umber and a tiny bit of the black. This one I am going to mix. I'm going to mix it till it gets to a consistency where I'm like, okay, yeah, that's dark enough. So it's kind of a dark brown. I will come back with a final picture after I get some of this done, because I'm running out of batteries on my computer. It's going to make me close that. Okay, so what I always do after I get to this point in my paintings is I take a step back and I really look at it and I think, what else does it need? And I am seeing that the vase is kind of big compared to my flowers. And I can't necessarily change that, but what I can do is I can add a few more. Again, I'm talking about balance. A few more of these big old flowers, just to kind of set it up a little bit more, make it look a little bit fuller. And I think this is just a good lesson in not feeling like you have to stick to whatever your original plan was. You certainly can change. I'm going to make that just two big old globs there for that one. So that is what I am doing. Just put a few more little. Again, I'm trying to balance one side and the other without matchy the two sides. But you know, now I got to go back with the with my brown, which my brown is kind of a brownish black now, which is a good thing. It's kind of a good contrast to the other colors here. So I'm going to grab the brown and I'm going to mix it, not just put them both in the brush, but actually mix them together so they make a nice dark brown. And unfortunately, you can see me a little bit, so they're wet. So I'm going to just, and one thing that I want to mention is that when you're working with something like that, you're trying to do a straight line, sometimes it's better to pick it up, turn it on its side, and get that line that way. So you have a little more control over what you're drawing. And, oops, I'm going to go here. And here. Again, I got that one a little bit lighter than I wanted. I think I need, problem is I'm pushing down, and you shouldn't push down. I should just be able to glide. I'm trying to combine it with these others so I'm not putting like all kinds of different stems going every which way. Let's see, where would that stem come from? I'm going to say right in here, water. It's a fine line between getting that in. Now, it doesn't look like much yet because I don't have the other colors attached to it. And that's because I really just need to let it dry first. So I'm going to let it dry, and I will be right back. I think it's looking pretty good.